You guys do spot.
Hey, Mark, cool to see you. What's up, folks? Hello, everybody on Zoom. We're going to get started here. Just a minute.
Yeah. I was director of aviation. So
hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Manaska, Director of Aviation. Rob Etmeyer, the General Manager, couldn't be here this evening due to another commitment. But I just wanted to say welcome to everyone. And what's a little bit unique tonight is we have a Fly Safe seminar series. We do one a month. We also have an airport community team, an ACT meeting. We also do once a month, which is a wider community conversation. And tonight's topic with the air traffic control one-on-one, I've seen it twice. It's a fantastic presentation. And we thought it'd be a really good conversation that it's just as applicable to our flying community as it is to the, I'll say, the local community on the ground. So we combined the ACT meeting and the Fly Safe meeting tonight because it's just that good. And it's a great presentation. Please ask questions. It's not very often do you have the experience that we have with the controllers we have in the room tonight. So this is absolutely ask everything you wanted to, both these gentlemen. I won't get in the way of the introductions. David will go through their bio, but tons of information. So please ask. Great opportunity to learn this evening. And also, I should mention as well, we have Director Diamond from Airport Board here as well. Sir, thank you for supporting us. So for that, I'm going to hand it over to David to do some introductions.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everybody, for coming. My name is David Van Quest. I am the Truckee Tahoe Airport Outreach Coordinator. I'm also your probably most local FAA safety team representative, and I just got an actual badge to prove that. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in if you're on Zoom. So, yeah, if you ever have questions about Wings, what is Wings? How do I do it? How do I log in? I could probably help you with that. For those of you getting wings credit tonight, we got a sign-in sheet in the back. And if you're here on Zoom, I'll just take an attendance report straight from Zoom, and that's how you'll get your credit. So thank you for joining us. Like Jeff mentioned, this is a collaboration airport community team meeting. And what looks like mostly here tonight is our monthly Fly Safe program. So like Jeff said, the Fly Safe program is here because as an airport, our pretty much requirements for safety are that we put the pavement on the ground and have the markings on it. That's where our responsibility ends for an airport, much like any other airport. So we're trying to go above and beyond that and get as much continuing education out there for our local pilots so that our pilots are safer, which makes the folks on the ground safer. And yeah, that's what we're doing with Fly Safe. So I'm really glad you guys are here tonight. Couple updates at the airport. Got here. I think last month I told you all I lied. I didn't really lie, but I said that if you've gone to all of our Fly Safe events so far this year, then you've acquired all 3 of the required wings knowledge activities. I was wrong, but tonight you're in luck because this is wings credit basic knowledge number 1. So that completes all 3. That means you're ready to go flying with an instructor and complete your phase of wings. So thanks for following along with the wings program if you have. There's that. Some more announcements. The June 8th, it's a Sunday, here at our airport is the Roundhouse Big Maker Show. They put on once a year. It's their largest fundraiser of the year. They're going to have a big setup out that way by where their Roundhouse Maker space is. So come on out to that. It's also going to be since we're not having an air show this year, I'll get to that later. We're going to be mixing in some elements of like a static air show. So there's going to be some aircraft on display, some EMS equipment out there. We're going to try to get some law enforcement out here to showcase some of their drone technology as well. That's going to be Sunday, June 8th. So Maker Show / static air show. So next up, the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, TTCF, just tomorrow is going to be starting applications for a workforce scholarship program. So they've got $40,000 set aside, courtesy of the Truckee Airport District, for folks that are young adults that are pursuing a career in aviation or some kind of STEAM career, somewhat tied to aviation. So if you're looking to find some scholarship money, check out their website. Not sure exactly what it is off the top of my head, but TTCF, that'll get you there. There's an event coming up, a flight clinic. Has anybody ever heard of the Finer Points of Flying? They're kind of a friend of ours. They've been here to put on one of these events, and Howard Donner works with them. He's one of our local CFIs. So they do these aviation sort of summer camp for adults, they call them. And they're doing one June 19th to the 22nd. It's going to be like California mountain flying. Anyone that's part of our Fly Safe program, they're going to be able to give you a $600 discount, courtesy of the Fly Safe program. So if you sign up for that event, they'll discount that for your registration. So check that out. One of the stops on their mountain flying course throughout the whole weekend is going to be here at Truckee Airport. So probably already familiar with Truckee, but anyway, check that out. They're going to be flying some mountain passes, doing some survival training, stuff like that. Sounds like a pretty cool weekend. I don't know if you've heard, but we're going to have a big reconstruction project out here this summer, starting in just a couple of weeks, hopefully. But that's the reason why the air show can't happen this year. We can't put 100,000 people out there walking around when the whole pavement area is all dug up out here. So it's this, what we call the front yard, the airport. That's going to get dug up and then rebuilt because currently it's like 9 inches deep. And the specs on that say it should be closer to like twice that depth. So they're going to dig it up and repave all that. So it's going to happen in 2 different phases, but it's going to take probably close to almost 3 months. We're going to have a meeting on May 20th, so next Tuesday, for interested parties to learn more about that project and its impacts on parking, whatnot. So taxiway,
Quebec is going to be unavailable during that. So there will be kind of some disruptions, but not a ton. So if you want to come learn more about that, that's May 20th. Anyone that's interested in gliders, glider pilots, the glider operation, they're already getting moved into their new office. They're doing a campground this year. They're going to start operations probably by the 24th or Memorial Day weekend. So that does have some impacts to departures off of runway 2 for opposite direction operations, which Larry will probably talk about tonight. And then that whole northeast quadrant of the airspace kind of gets blocked off just for glider operations. So just keep that in mind. Last month I mentioned this, but twice a year we look at how our runways are used and how particularly like the dispersion of air traffic. We put this out at our board meeting, which is going to happen just a couple of weeks. It's called the Runway Utilization Report. And I mention this because one of the biggest things we look at, because mostly jets and turboprops are going to have to use the longest runway because it's the longest runway. Some of their specs require it, or they're doing IFR departures. But for the small GA crowd, which is most of you, when you're able to depart off of runway 2, it makes a really big difference on the like noise impact to our neighborhoods. So this last report showed that during calm winds, piston aircraft departed off of runway 2 45% of the time, which is the highest number I've ever seen that in the 5 years I've been looking at this data. So I want to thank you guys for departing off of runway 2. If you haven't, we suggest that you do. We're going to be rolling into the summer, as I mentioned, so the glider operations are going to kind of limit how often we can do that, but as much as you can when you're able and it's safe. We really appreciate that. So thank you for departing off of runway 2. It was tied with departures off of runway 29 for that demographic, so that was really cool. So that's enough of me. How about we get to the raffle? You guys play raffle tickets in this thing? All right. All right, get your tickets out. Here we go. All right, first prize. This is the Truckee Tahoe Airport water bottle. You can stuff this in your bike bottle cage. This thing is brand new, not used. All right, this beautiful water bottle is going to someone put the keep this coupon part on 576-255. Who's got 255 for a water bottle? There he is. It was the first person here today. All right, next up, Truckee Tahoe Airport Fly Safe T-shirt. Do that. This one's going to lucky number 576-259. There you are. Congratulations. Big winner. All right, there you go. Fly safe. Hoodie. It's chilly. It's like winter again. This one's going too. 576-258. Nice. All right, we got a couple of Truckee Tahoe Airport Fly Safe hats. We got the black and gray. Nice hat. This one's going to 576-260. There he is. Pop it up to the winner. Big winner. All right, and so for the last 3 months, we've done a raffle for the people who are on Zoom. No one's claimed it yet, so we're not going to do that tonight. So. Oh, got another hat. Sorry if you're on Zoom, you're not getting this hat tonight. Same hat, but this one's blue. A couple shades of blue. Look at it's the great prize. All right, this one's going too. 576. Who's still in it? Yeah, there you go. 2. Yeah. 5. 0. Hey. All right, that's it for raffles. Let me switch this up. So we're about to get you to your headliner. Cool. The Zoom people say that the sound is working, so I'm glad you guys can hear us tonight. Let's drop that there. Bring that up there. Just a moment.
Started doing that actually. It was about great 3 years. It was just
Oh, that's good right there. All right, now for the reason y'all are here tonight. Let me introduce your headliners for the evening, all the way from our air traffic control tower at the end of the airfield. You might recognize them from 120.575. Maybe you've never seen them in person, but Larry Finney is here tonight, and he brought along with him his pal from Oakland Center, Justin Martin. So without further ado, help me introduce Larry Finney.
All right. So DVQ's already talked about one of my slides, so we'll be a little bit quicker tonight for you. But once again, my name is Larry Finney. I'm the air traffic manager. I got hired in 2017 at the tower when it was a winter seasonal, summer seasonal tower. Shortly thereafter, the board of directors voted to keep it around. I've been there since. I'm the longest tenured controller there, followed by everybody loves Steve Ingebretson. Steve is he's been there about 7 years. And then it goes down from there. As you know, we've got 2 newer controllers. Robert came on last year as our full-time year-round. Paige is our summer seasonal, and she is on now, fully recertified and back on duty. So you'll hear 5 of us on the radio down there. Sometimes we're combined, sometimes we're not. So just bear with us if you hear the same voice on both. 120.575 at what's ground frequency? 118.3. So, anyways, which one? All right, stay closer. Stay closer to the okay. A lot of you look like you're familiar faces. You've probably been to one of these or 2 of these. This is our 3rd one, the second one that we've had Justin come up here. So some of this is going to look familiar to you, but it's all just kind of the basics of what we do here at Truckee. After I just do a real quick FAA overview of what local ATC facilities look like and how we operate. Then we'll cover everything else that's up there. This time I did add a summertime ops and glider ops and drones. We've had an increase in unauthorized drone activity in the area and reports of drones. I'm part of the airport safety committee, so I offered up at the safety committee meeting to talk about it here tonight. Please, if you have a drone, I'm not looking at you, Mike, but if you have a drone, please make sure you follow all the rules correctly. Otherwise, law enforcement can get involved. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too. Big thing in the back of the room is my business card, as well as a survey form. My company, Midwest Air Traffic Control, likes getting feedback from the users. So grab one of those, grab a business card, because we do like to do tours And if you do tours, like the fine young gentleman over here brings cookies, the tower controllers love cookies. So you don't have to bring them, but we like cookies. Right, Raj? Where's Raj? He's here. Yeah. So anyways, we'll get right into it. There's three types of air traffic control towers. There's a FAA federal contract and non-federal. We are a non-federal control tower. Even though we're non-federal, we follow all the same rules that an FAA facility follows or a federal contract tower follows. The pictures you see Reno. Reno is an FAA tower. They're staffed by FAA controllers. They follow the same rules that we do. We're a non-federal control tower. Sacramento executive, when they are staffed, it's by a contractor. Sometimes they're not open because there is a staffing crisis in air traffic control. Justin can tell you that down at the center as well. Currently, the contract for the tower for Truckee is provided by Midwest Air Traffic Control. We're in the start of the second year of a 3-year contract with the district. The local ATC facilities, obviously, there's Truckee Tower. NorCal Approach, I haven't invited them up. We probably should invite them up for the next time because you guys do probably use their services. I worked at NorCal Approach for the last 7.5, 8 years of my career in the FAA. The first 20 years was over at Reno. I worked the Sacramento area and then we took over the Reno airspace. So if you fly in and out of Reno and or through the Sacramento Valley, get flight following from Oakland Center, they hand you off to NorCal. That's the area that I worked. But that's what their facility looks like. And then, of course, Justin's beautiful facility in Fremont, California. And if you haven't been there, Justin's email is in the PowerPoint presentation, and you can probably get a tour there if you want. I know a couple of the local pilots stopped by and talked to me. They said they did a tour of NCT, Northern California TRACON, and they really loved it. So, you know, Raj, I think you were down, you went down. So they are open for tours. Justin Martin. Justin is, I'll let him tell you a little bit more about himself, but I work with him quite a bit on procedural stuff. He is a procedure and airspace guy at the center, as well as somebody you hear on the frequency at Oakland Center. So, Justin, I'll let you chat about your stuff.
Everyone, my name's Justin Martin, air traffic controller at Oakland Center. I've been at Oakland Center for about 10 years, originally from the East Coast. I'm also a pilot. Fractional ownership, 2 planes we keep at Concord, so I'm very familiar with pilot side of things as well. I want to talk a little bit about Oakland Center, also what I'm here to do and talk about. My role is I am an air traffic controller. I'm also a representative for the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. We're the union that represents the air traffic controllers, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association and the controller workforce. Sector 44 is one of the sectors in my area. Sector 44 is 127.905 for those that fly and are familiar with the airspace. It's one of 6 positions that our area has, a controller, 6 sectors that our area has and controllers get certified on. We have 3 high altitude sectors that do most of the sequencing for San Francisco and Las Vegas arrivals over Mina and Coaldale, if you're familiar with that area. And then we have 3 low sectors, 44, and then also 128.8, 125.75, if you're familiar, which would be basically everything surrounding Reno up to you get Seattle, Salt Lake, and Los Angeles Center to the south. We do the approach control for Mammoth and Bishop as well. And then we overlie Fallon, where Top Gun is now at Navy Fallon. So we have a lot of large airspace. And then again, that's just one of 5 areas at Oakland Center in the airspace that we work. At Sector 44, we provide the approach control services for Truckee and South Lake Tahoe, which, as you guys are familiar, has increased in traffic and volume and complexity over the years. Recently, in the last five or so years, we've had a lot of really great improvements, technologically speaking. With the introduction of ADS-B at Truckee and Tahoe, thanks to this airport here, we have really seen a big increase in the way how close we can see aircraft. When I started my career below 10,000 feet, we didn't see you. Now, the second, if you're ADS-B equipped, the second you depart, we can see at ground elevation 5901, we can see your target. So it has really allowed us a real-time glimpse into what we see. And it is, if you've noticed things that have become more efficient, especially if you're IFR flying, and feel safer. It's because they are, thanks to that technology and all that. We've also developed a phenomenal relationship with Larry in the tower here. We work really well together, our controllers, as well as on behind the scenes. So there's been a lot of improvements there. Unlike NorCal approach at a lot of the airports that you guys are probably used to flying into and out of, other than Truckee, right? They're serviced by an approach control. That's their main focus. The en route side, our main focus is en route air traffic control, and then we provide approach control almost as a secondary function. It's not, but it is very different than an approach control, which that is what their main focus is. So we have, over the years, like I said, we've become a lot more efficient. We've worked to increase the service we provide, and we take that very seriously. We provide a wide range of traffic service at Oakland Center, and specifically, in my area. So military, we talked about Navy Fallon, approach control services, the Truckee, South Lake, Mammoth, Bishop, as well as dozens of uncontrolled airports. 88 November Victor, for those of you that fly up to Burning Man that time of year, we provide the service in and out of Burning Man as well. Rocket launches, we've talked about that a bit tonight. So Black Rock rocket launch area, we that is in our airspace, so we safely separate aircraft from those rocket launch and areas there. Search and rescue and photo missions, especially coming out of the winter, you see a lot of photo missions and LiDAR looking at the snow and the mountains out here, and that's what we're balancing that with the rest of our VFR and IFR traffic. As we talked about, Northern California TRACON, they work 19,000 feet and below, basically over Reno and then over Sacramento and then the Bay and south. We work the airspace in between. I think we have a slide on that a little bit later, in between Sacramento and Reno. So that's why you talk to NorCal, talk to us, and then talk to NorCal again if you're flying through all the way from the Bay, let's say up to, northern Nevada. And that's kind of the basic of what we do at Oakland Center, the services we provide. It's a very diverse amount of service that we're providing, and we're really happy to work with Truckee and provide service to all of you.
I think you got one more, Justin, but to follow up, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. We call it a shadow line. And again, sometimes we might say, serious, hey, Victor Papa, say again, I was on the landline. It's probably because we're talking to Oakland Center. There's a lot of communication that goes back and forth. Justin mentioned technological improvements. One of the things we don't have that we've been trying to get is a flight data input-output printer that will print strips. Later on, I have a picture of some flight progress strips that might open up some automation between the center and us a little bit more. Flight following, we'll talk about flight following. A lot of you like to get flight following with the center. We can't initiate it here, but we get you over to Oakland Center as soon as possible. And I will talk about it as being in a secondary service, an additional service that is workload permitting. But this is your slide, Justin. So Justin did mention the ADS-B. The airport invested in that years ago. There was that three-legged stool concept to help make this airport safer and reduce the noise and annoyance in the area. One of the legs was the tower. The other was ADS-B, and then the other is flight pursuit. The tower obviously has been up and running for 7+ years now. The ADS-B is up. Flight procedures, I think, has been tabled for now. It's just a tough market to develop procedures, and that's Justin's forte is developing these types of procedures. The mountains in the area make it extremely tough. I've talked to a lot of the pilots, especially departing 1-1. Some are comfortable with it, some are. The train is right there, and so even though we've made these improvements, there's still a couple of things we'd like to see. We got a digital ATIS a few years back that has helped things out, at least from the tower controller's perspective. I think it's helped out. I know the pilots like to get that AWOS and get that updated weather every couple minutes, including the winds, but we have that, and I'll show you a picture of what it looks like in the tower for us. Anything else you want to?
So just the one additional thing is because of the terrain in the area, ADS-B and the some of the in technological improvements have actually allowed us to lower some of our minimum IFR altitude. So if 6 years ago you remember flying IFR and being stuck at 13,000, now you can fly through at 11. That's because of those improvements that we've seen and the surveillance. It's allowed us to church those altitudes down to lower for you guys to be able to fly safely.
Yeah, lots of good stuff's happened in the 7.5 years I've been here, and I just see it continuing to get safer and more efficient airport throughout the years. This is Justin's display. This is what the controllers see, and Justin, you have any?
Yeah, it's really difficult to see, but it's just to kind of show you a general idea of what our radar display is. We either have a black or blue screen. Our airspace is where our radar is set to true north. Unlike NorCal, it's going to be magnetic. So, due north on our scope's about 340 for us on magnetic variation. It kind of, you can see the labels just kind of where I grew up there. You can see kind of where things are. So we have Navy Fallon, Mustang VOR, Reno, where Truckee sits kind of in between everything. We have the ability we have a lot of cool things we can do with our radar. We can, overlay some of the approaches that are in the area. We have, the ability to see a lot of the ADS-B or VFR mode C intruders, as we call them, or 1200 codes flying around. We also see, and we'll talk about later, but quite a few glider targets. It just is one of our many tools to provide, our service. Just a little bit of an overview. I do have other pictures after that aren't on the slide. So if anyone's more interested and wants to see some more of the technology that we have, I'd be happy to share them.
This next slide here, this was given to me by one of the local CFIs. She showed it to me and I was like, I'm going to steal this from you if you don't mind. So it is a screenshot of a picture she took when she was at NCT. They had an opportunity to sit down and listen to the Reno controllers, and those were I worked there, like I said, 20 years, and then that's where I supervised, was in that area. And so I was certified on the 2 Reno sectors. Ironically, we used to call them North and South, but in the TRACON environment over at Northern California Approach Control, they wouldn't let us use North and South, so it became Silver and Nugget for obvious reasons. So it's 2 sectors, still North and South, but typically they run it with one controller working 119.2 and 126.3. And I think it's at Silver. I know when I was at NCT, that's where it was at. So one of the things that color's better over here. One of the things is that gap between the eastern side of NCT and Reno airspace. It's about 46 miles, if I remember right, where at one point in 2010, when we took the approach control from Reno over to NorCal approach, we wanted that airspace. NCT wanted that airspace, and Oakland Center didn't want to give it up. And then there was a question asked, why do we want it? Nothing good happens over the Sierras. And at that point, we didn't have ADS-B. They had radio issues with remote transmitters and receivers. And so there was a lot of dead area out there for the pilots transitioning. Even though it's only 46 miles or so, a lot of stuff can go on in that 46 miles. And if you're not talking to somebody now with the advancements in ADS-B, the remote transmitters and receivers that the center uses, you can probably, like Justin said, you can see you at 5,900 feet on the ground here. They're going to see you all the way across the Sierras, and they should be able to talk to you. So that gap is still, I don't know what's happening with it, if it's going to stay with Oakland or go to NCT, but there's some interesting stuff going on there. So this is kind of just real basic stuff, how we operate, how Justin operates, the controllers at Oakland Center, and how we operate. The FAA has an order called 7110.65. We refer to it as 0.65. That's order everybody follows. That first slide I showed you with the 3 different types of control towers, that's what I was mentioning. That's what we follow here, even though we're a non-federal tower. Everybody has to do it regardless. This is kind of our duty priority, safe, orderly, expeditious flow of traffic. And we'll get into how we do some of that here locally at Truckee. We do support national security, the unauthorized drones that we're going to get shot down. I got a picture of our counter UAS weapon system that we're going to get here at Truckee if the airport will pay for it, so we can shoot down these drones. Now, we do support any kind of homeland defense, including firefighting. local law enforcement. We work quite a bit with care flights as well. They're not necessarily Homeland Security, but we do work with care flight guys quite a bit. Is there anybody care flight pilots here tonight? Secondary and additional services we'll cover. We kind of talked about it. Flight following is one of them. And again, I can't stress this enough. We follow the same rules everybody follows, and that includes all the minimum separation, which we use here at Truckee and what Justin uses. And duty priority, first come, first is no. That's later. Separating aircraft and issuing safety alerts. We do not have the equipment in the tower to issue a safety alert. A safety alert might be a minimum safe altitude warning, or as referred to, you might hear it as a CACA or a LALA. LALA is low altitude alert. CACA, unfortunate events in DCA, you probably heard all the tapes with alarms sounding and all that. That's a conflict alert. We don't have that at Truckee. We don't have the equipment. That is what would be referred to as a STARS platform. I don't know if you have any follow-up you wanted.
Yeah, so in the en route environment, we do, it's slightly different. We have what's called MSAL, minimum safe altitude warning, and then we have conflict alert or CA. Unlike STARS, we don't get any aural alert. It's all visual. It's all flashing data blocks on the display. But that's how we can see if there's a conflict alert. Again, there is, as Larry kind of mentioned, if you're ever flying into, NorCal, if you're flying under the Bravo, talking to one of the controllers working San Francisco finals or something like that, you're probably, every time you hear up, you're probably hearing the beep. And that's because every time they're working that airspace, there's always aircraft that the system STARS is telling them is in conflict. It doesn't mean they're actually in conflict, right? So in the en route, it's similar, but we don't get an aural alert. We'll see flashing in the data blocks. And that's just a tool to help us know when the system's saying, hey, these seem like they're getting too close. The controllers are the ones that are actually making those decisions, making sure that the aircraft are properly separated. And it's not always the case with that. And then for MSAL, low altitude alert, it will let us know again, not orally and it's not a sound in the en route environment the way it is in the terminal environment, but our radar system will show us, it'll show us the box or the area that you're about to fly into, and it'll give us a warning that, hey, you're at this altitude. For example, where this may occur is like on a Victor Airway, where the minimum en route altitude is below the minimum IFR altitude in an area. It might flash what we call MSAL, even though you're at a safe altitude, because of the fact that you're on that airway and you're above the minimum en route altitude.
So that would be the safety alert part of separating. We separate airplanes, and like I said, I'll talk to you about how we separate and what our responsibilities are here at Truckee a little bit later on. When more than one action is required, the controller is going to use their best judgment and take care of it based on the facts known to them. And then it's always going to be based on safety. That is a big part of what we do, is provide the safe, orderly, expeditious flow of air traffic. And for here, it's in and out of Truckee.
And real quick, one last thing, sorry. The safety alerts piece, if you're ever listening and you ever hear, traffic alert and then November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or low altitude alert, November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is what a safety alert is. It'll always be that term first and then the call sign. It's the only thing in air traffic where we say the thing first and then the call sign. It's always typically your call sign first. And that's when the idea is you need to listen up. And that's what a safety alert is from the en route environment and then, from terminal.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing with the Tracon and the tower requirements. Additional duty priorities, like I said, we provide the Homeland's national security homeland, including unauthorized, unusual aircraft and pilot activities. See a lot of unusual pilot stuff. Not really. Just pilot ME. Extend your down. No, my screen's all red. Did I call you out? Sorry. A few years back, we all became certified weather observers down at the control tower. So if you want anything, let us know. Otherwise, once an hour, we take a weather observation, then we have criteria for special observations. We're moving into thunderstorm season, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. But we do that. We also pass that information to the pilots. So if you have a PIREP, let us know. And then what we will do is we'll forward it to Oakland Center 44, the sector, to Justin's controllers down there. They will put it into a system that they'll then disseminate it throughout most everybody's flight or some kind of automated thing. That's probably where you'll get it. I would imagine. I don't use ForeFlight.
Yeah, every center in the country has what's called a CWSU or Center Weather Service Unit. Meteorologist works at Oakland Center. Unfortunately, due to a lot of changes in the federal government, and that really started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, there have been some absences of those people. So a lot of times there's combining of those positions where you may have Los Angeles Center providing center weather service for Oakland Center at certain times due to staffing. That's been an issue that I know they're working on and trying to rectify, because they are a huge resource. So when I put in a PIREP, or when you guys call with a PIREP or call Larry with a PIREP and I put it in, I have a computer called the ERIDS, or En route information display system, where I can put the information. It goes straight to our meteorologist on site, and then they get that information, they decode it, they look for the spelling errors that I guaranteed had when I put it in, and then come yell at me about it. And then once they figure it out, then it goes in, and that's when you'll see those PIREPs on ForeFlight or aviation-weather.gov or whatever. So that's generally within a couple minutes of getting it from you, it's in that system, over to the meteorologist, and then disseminated out.
Secondary and additional services, believe it or not, traffic advisories in the FAA's .65, that is a secondary service. We do not have a certified tower radar display up in the tower. We are fortunate enough to have an airport district that supports the tower and what we do to make it a safer tower. We have 2 different displays that we use that are based on the ADS-B and some other feeds that I don't quite understand. I'm looking at Mike Cook, the IT manager back there. Yeah, but all these, it's a mosaic of a bunch of different feeds that come in that we see, and I'll show you what they look like a little bit later. We do traffic advisories, but we don't do it as 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 miles, opposite direction, whatever. We'll tell you, hadn't you right over Donner Lake, over Boca Reservoir, over Prosser Dam. Kevin's not here, but I'll pick on him. He does not have an ADS-B in his yellow floatplane, so we don't see him. If you don't have an ADS-B, we don't see you. It's not required to fly in and out of the Truckee Airport, but we enjoy having that display. It's really easy to see you and pick you up. Bird activity, we do get a lot of birds up in the area. With that new ATIS that we got a few years back, we will put an advisory for the pilots to know that there's an increase in bird activity. Flight following, this is always, well, it has been the last time. It's always been a question that a lot of pilots had about flight following. So I put it in this one specifically. We don't, like I said earlier, we cannot initiate flight following from our system up in our tower because we don't have the system. So Justin, do you want to talk about flight following?
Sure. A little bit. So I get this question. I do a lot of these, both the Truckee and other airports, and it's one of the, probably the most common question I get is, do you guys like talking to us? Do you like us getting flight following? The answer is always yes. It's not a requirement, obviously, in Class Echo airspace, but we see a lot of what we call mode C intruders, or 1200 codes flying around, and a lot of times no problem. But every controller has had that moment where you've got 2 mode C intruders headed towards each other, and there's nothing we can do but watch. Hopefully you see each other. With ADS-B now, I know it's a lot easier to see and avoid other aircraft, right? Or as a tool to help you, see and avoid when you're flying VFR. But I would strongly encourage, there are going to be times where the controller may be too busy. As Larry mentioned, flight following is an additional service or secondary service. So if we're very busy handling IFR operations, there is a possibility to be told, hey, call back in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or, aircraft calling, I'll get back to you in a few minutes. But I would say that's few and far between the times that we can provide that service. And again, we want to provide that service because I'd rather have 30 airplanes in my airspace that I'm talking to, all VFR, that I can give traffic advisories to, that I can tell you about each other, than 3 and then 27 aircraft that I'm not talking to. And there's not much I can do other than point that traffic out. If I see clear trends in what that aircraft's doing, I can turn you or restrict you, but there's no guarantee that airplane won't just, especially in this area over Lake Tahoe, where you have a lot of sightseeing operations, a lot of airplanes flying that we're not talking to talk to one airplane that's maybe on, an IFR approach, visual approach going in here, a jet over, the lake, and they've got 8 targets between them and Truckee, and I'm not talking to any of them. It makes our job a little bit more difficult. Now, that being said, there is nothing wrong with it. There's no requirement to get flight following. I would hope and encourage anyone that if you are flying around without getting flight following, monitor the center or approach control frequency for that area. Because you'll hear sometimes aircraft, 5 miles east of Palisades VOR at 9,300, are you on frequency? And that's a good opportunity for you to be like, oh, this controller needs wants to talk to me, because it could just be an aircraft delaying. We have C-130s, that'll go down low level in the lake that don't have ADS-B that I won't be able to see. So to let you know, hey, there's a pretty quick airplane flying around pretty low, just to let you know they're there. So that would be my encouragement. And again, anytime you can, or it's convenient for you to get flight planning, I would highly encourage it. One more quick thing. So for the flight following process, when you call, you give us your call sign where you are. The process for that, both NorCal and Oakland, we have different systems, but it's similar. We get a code, so we push a button, type your call sign in, it spits out an automatic transponder code. We issue that code to you, and then immediately you're tagged up. It's about a 5-second process, and then normally we come back to radar identify you, ask your altitude, make sure that the position lines up with what we see. But it's a very quick and easy process. I just wanted to add the tech side of it.
So there is kind of misspoke. We do like to have some of the BFR pilots that are transitioning along the Interstate 80 corridor that might not be landing at Truckee. We're getting more and more pilots calling us just to let us know they're in the area. Justin mentioned that there's an IFR inbound into Truckee, and there's 8 people on his scope that he's not talking to. There's a good chance, and we do it too, especially in the vicinity between Stampede, the practice area between the reservoirs. That's where our 2 instrument departures go out, is up over that direction. And so if we see somebody approaching truck at 10,500 and I just cleared a guy for takeoff on the truck 5 departure, and there's a potential for a conflict, I'll reach out. Aircraft 5 miles east of Stampede, are you on frequency? Yeah, I'm just listening. Okay, there's a jet climbing up. And so we do that kind of stuff, but we can't tag you up and give you that transponder code for flight following. All of these secondary services are contingent upon what the controller's work duties are and higher priorities. So like Justin said, sometimes you're going to get services from a controller, and other times you're going to tell you unable, they're too busy. So operational priority, first come, first serve. Here at Truckee, because of the fleet mix that we have, you might be the first one to call, but you might not be the first one to land, because we use that airspeed and the performance of the aircraft. When I got here, and you probably have heard the story if you've attended one of these, there was a trike taxiing out and a G6 was right behind him. If you're familiar what a trike is or not familiar, it's a kite with an engine on the back of it. I'm sorry, Preston, you probably have time in the line.
I know, actually.
No. But it was what the, how do we do this job as an air traffic controller when you got a guy doing 40 knots and you got a guy that's doing 3 times, 4 times that on approach. So sometimes we use the aircraft performance to determine the sequence. The exception, emergency aircraft and medevacs. And again, we have the Care Flight helicopter base here that we work with quite a bit. Anything for you, Justin? I've presented this a couple times. It came up if you attended the ACT meeting on the deep dive into noise that Kay, and when she was in that position, put on. Runway selection has a lot to do with the impact to the community. Is there any non-pilots that are attending it as part of the ACT meeting tonight, or is everybody a pilot? You are familiar. I've seen. Yes, you go to the ACT meetings, right? Todd, yes. Thank you for coming, Todd. So if you haven't seen this, this is how we select a runway and why you might see airplanes over your house some days and other days not. So what we do is every morning when we get in and periodically through the shift, we will take a look at the current forecast or the current winds, and we will look also at the forecasted winds. We also look at aloft, and that's what this upper right part of the screen is showing. There's sensors National Weather Service has all around the area. We typically look at the Palisades one up at 8,700 feet. That gives a good indication. Based on what those winds are doing and what the winds are doing on the ground, our job is to try to provide the center with an approach that will provide the pilot a stable approach to this airport. So you might see the winds up at Palisades out of the east at 15, but the winds down here are calm. We're going to still configure to a runway 29 operation because somewhere there's a shear and for the pilot. So we look into that. We do pay attention to the TAF. That's in the lower portion of the screen. We have that running all the time on a computer in the tower cap. We then we have to determine whether or not, Justin talked about minimum instrument altitudes over the area have gone down to about 11,000 feet. So what we pick an instrument approach or a visual approach based on the ceiling. So the ceiling has to be 500 feet above that lowest altitude that he has for us to legally advertise a visual approach. They can still clear you for a visual approach if you have the airport in sight, as long as the field is VFR. So we look at visual or instrument conditions, and then that is going to play big on the instrument departures. There's two instrument departure procedures off this airport. Both of them come off of runway 29 or 2. So we don't want to put ourselves in an opposite direction operation by advertising the RNAV to 11 and departing 29 because it's inherently unsafe by the FAA is considered that. Plus, we have a letter of agreement with Oakland Center that has cutoff points. These cutoff points are extremely far out there, so we become less efficient if we put ourselves in an opposite direction operation or ODO, as you might have already heard. So FAA runway section requirements, that's down here. That's out of our 0.65. A lot of this was a recommendation from the NTSB after an accident in Denver a few years back. The airport configured, the FAA configured the tower or the runways for the noise abatement plan, the noise flow plan, but the crosswinds were so bad and the ice and the runways were icy that a Continental 737 slid off the runway. And it was found out in the investigation, it was because they were more worried about noise than they were worried about the safety of the airplanes and the crews and the pilots and passengers and everybody. So that is all included in there. We have to consider the crosswind as well as the headwind and tailwind. So there's a lot of stuff that we look at. And then we talked about opposite direction operation. That's the FAA's little diagram. Basically, if you're 45 degrees, blah, 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 nose to nose. ODO, you want to speak on ODO or how we select runways?
I think Larry covered it pretty good. Opposite direction operations are very frowned upon. If you guys ever fly into South Lake, you know that it's kind of, that's just the operation there. And it's, even though it's an uncontrolled airport, it can be a difficult operation, especially when there's that temp tower in the summer, typically for the Pro-Am golf tournament. It adds a lot of complexity for that area. We try to avoid it at all costs here because of the safety impacts of that and what we see when volume picks up. Plus, Truckee is significantly busier than South Lake Tahoe, so it does create a lot of complexities. But there are times that we have to do that, especially for some of our jet traffic that can only land on 11 or on the RNAV 11. So there are times where we're forced into this, inefficient procedure. But when we do, it's always safety first. It's always following the rules, making sure we're complying with the regulations and performing these operations safely.
Yeah, and that 11, you've probably seen it the last few days. The wind has been kind of fickle after that big windstorm over the weekend. So we do, it's not that we won't go to a 1-1 flow. We do, and then it becomes the opposite direction operation and we become less efficient. So you as a departure could expect a delay, especially if there's an RV out on the RNAV 11 doing 60 knots. No, you fly a lot faster than that, Don. Sorry. Don is an honorary air traffic controller. He comes up to the tower at least once a week and we love him. So because I bring him cookies. Well, I do listen. So if there is somebody practicing an instrument approach in IFR conditions and is a slow moving aircraft and you're waiting to go off of 29, it could be a delay. Even if you go off of runway 2, because the departure procedure turns right back around into that final approach course and puts it in that ODO category that Justin won't let us release based on that. Comwind runways. David touched about it. I'll talk about it. I think a little bit later on we'll talk about it, but we consider the comwinds. I don't think there's an official comwind program, but the tower and the district has worked very hard to utilize the comwind runways when we can. In addition to the runway 2s getting up to 45%, which again, there's a slide for it, but I'll thank you guys all as well. it was a big change for us to start doing that in the last 5 years since I've been the manager. I've been doing monthly refresher item trainings to the controllers to emphasize the importance of noise abatement for the community and for the airport. So that number you'll see from, I took it out of his report, shows the graph. And for the last 4 to 5 years since we've all been promoting it with the airport outreach, with my briefings and the fuel trucks and all that kind of stuff, and DVQ sending me emails, K sending me emails, that number has just, that 45% is significant. Pre-tower in 2016, 2017, that number was 10%. So we're up to 45%.
Published in runway suggest under the airport facilities directory.
We carried on the ATIS. That was one of the things when asked what we could do to make the airport safer, I had mentioned getting an ATIS, and when it came down to it, one of the things that is always on the ATIS, if you've flown on the Truckee lately, we're always going to hear noise abatement procedures in effect. So that's always going to be on the ATIS. That's an agreement that I made with the district that it's not required to be on the ATIS, which I do have an ATIS screen later on, but it's not required, but we keep it on. Just as a nice reminder. So common runways, but most importantly, you're responsible for your aircraft and the safe operation of it. So if we give you runway 2 and you can't take it, tell us 129, we're going to take you to 29. But if you don't tell us anything, you just call up from the hangar ready to taxi and the winds are calm, you're going to go to a calm wind runway. So more than likely 2. Here's the picture. So noise abatement, thank you all for your efforts. I think it's been a great team effort by everybody involved. You can see that top picture. It shows from pre to where we are. Why we had a dip, I don't know. Maybe it was I was on vacation. No, I'm just kidding. No, everybody up in the tower understands the implications of not being noise sensitive to the community, and so that's why I think you're seeing some of this stuff. The airport recently has put out a bunch of initiatives, the Fly Safe, Fly Quiet programs, where we talk about it quite a bit. They've got the shoulder hour protocols for the Fly Quiet that you can see there. That lower right picture, it's kind of hard to see, but that's on the tower cab. If you come for a tour, it's on the inside wall. We look at that every day as we come up to the tower to go to work. So that's there. Stakeholder initiatives. I know Mountain Lion, Chris is here. Mountain Lion gets a lot of kudos for what they're doing, and they should. We try our best to get the 1-1 departures. If you request 1-1, it puts us in that opposite direction, that ODO. But if it's a quiet time of the day, we're going to take you to 1-1. But if it's going to be a delay for you, we'll probably tell you, and you've probably heard it, Chris, you can expect a 5-minute delay, 2-minute delay, and then you can go to a different runway more than likely. But it's from stakeholders like Mountain Lion, NetJets. I don't see any NetJet pilots. No, they have, and Justin's familiar with them, they have a couple really good charted visual arrivals based on RNAV procedures that are very noise friendly. And just recently I found out AT&T, who has a big presence up at the lake from property up there, they have developed their own procedures that are very noise friendly as well. So I already talked about, we review all the noise abatement stuff with the tower team. And like for the pilots, safety is your number one priority to operate your aircraft safely. For us, safety is a priority. So if it's a noise issue or safety, we're going to go with safety. ATIS, a whole bunch of stuff, how we picked the ATIS. You guys well heard it. I won't get into all of it because I want to leave enough time for some questions and answers, but that's what it looks like up in the tower cab. This is an older picture because it had the 5G node in effect, but you can also see noise abatement procedures in effect. The big thing here, I don't have to include it on the ATIS read back all runway hold short instructions. I do because a lot of you guys don't read back your assigned runway or hold short instructions. So please, if you say, you call up for taxi, RV 951 runway Lima is ready to taxi, request 1-1, and I say runway 1-1 taxi via Tango Alpha, and you just say Roger, which Don doesn't, he reads back his runway. But if you just say Roger, I'm going to go are you gonna go via Tango and Alpha? And I'm gonna go, that part of the readback was correct. However, I do need that assigned runway. And that holds true for an FAA or a federal contract tower. You need to read it back. If they're not chipping on you, then they're not doing their job. So I've started doing that. And I think everybody else up in the towers following suit with that. So please read that. Your runway assignments. That's our weather display. This is where we get the AWAS data. And I put every minute. Mike, is it updated every minute or every two minutes? Okay. So what you guys used to get on 118.0 on the AWAS frequency, which is now the ATIS frequency, this is the display we see up in the tower cab. So that you can see the winds 220 at 12 gusts into 24. That's the wind we're going to give you. And if you've been flying out of Truckee for a while, you know there's 7 windsocks and they all face different directions. They have multiple times. We can see most of them, and if you have a question on it, just let us know, and we'll try to give you the best possible estimation of what the windsocks are showing. Density altitude, when we get to 70 degrees, the ATIS will automatically spit out density altitude 7,200, 8,300 in this example. And these are our situation awareness displays. We cannot use them for separation purposes. They're not certified by the FAA. The FAA is exploring more of these displays like the one on the right in that top picture. It's from a company called Airbus, and they're I think one of the contractors that the FAA is looking at to put in control towers, these non-certified displays, situational awareness displays. Our contract with the company that I work for, if I use this for separation, it's grounds for dismissal. So just know that. The big thing that you're probably used to is getting vectors, a radar vector by a controller to keep you clear of traffic or to put you into a sequence. I can't do that here. Justin can give you a vector and sequence you in with other traffic you might be talking to, but I can't do that up in the tower. But what we do as a way around it, I send you to a geographic point. If you're coming in over Palisades and I want you to go over Gateway, I'm going to tell you to go up the Gateway, follow the interstate for left traffic 29, if that's the runway in use, right traffic 20, if that happens to be the runway in use. I'm not vectoring you. I'm not giving you a heading. And some pilots will come back and go, can I get a heading? No, sorry, I can't give you a heading, but turn 10 degrees left.
We got to check. You use a clock position.
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah, like instead of vectoring it, you're 2 o'clock. Or is that considered a vector via chat?
Well, 0.65 a vector is either turn a number of degrees right or left, or
okay. So
no, I wouldn't give it to traffic calls. We don't give 2 o'clock either. They say that's your left off your right.
Okay.
But on our displays, we get aircraft ID, and again, it's hard to see. Aircraft ID, we get the indicated altitude. Since it's not a certified tower display, we say altitude indicates. So if you're looking for somebody and I tell you altitude indicates 8,400, look about 400 or 500 feet up or down either side of that altitude I give you, and you might be able to see them. Where Justin's displays are tied into an altimeter setting and they're certified. And so when he says 8,500, probably at 8,500.
To comment on that, if you guys are familiar flying, especially in the summer, sometimes flying over Sacramento where the altimeter is 2980 and go up to Truckee where the altimeter is 3030 and go over to Reno where it's 3002. And all our altimeters are based off of what we call radar sort box. But basically from the physical radar, it's calibrated to whatever altimeter setting it's reading. So we don't at Oakland Center, none of our altimeter or radar sort boxes are set to Truckee. They're either set to Sacramento, and then halfway through our airspace, they switch to Reno. So if you ever hear a controller like, hey, you appear 300 feet low and you didn't do anything, it might be just because it switched over that sort box and the controller didn't realize it. There are a lot of times too where, we've been asked this question, you check on with us and we give you Sacramento altimeter and you're like, I'm past Sacramento and I want to tune Truckee altimeter. The reason we do that is for separation. If I have another aircraft, typically an IFR aircraft that I know is going into Sacramento on altimeter 2980, and I give you 3030, that's a huge change, right? That's a few hundred feet. So that is why you'll hear that, and then you may get told to switch over. If you're getting close and you feel like you want to switch over, we have pilots ask a lot, like, "Hey, can we switch to the Truckee altimeter?" Normally, we won't have a problem with it. This isn't normally a big issue if the altimeter's within 5 or 6. You know, it's really on those days where you'll hear us really reiterating Sacramento altimeter 2980, or some of us use Placerville or Blue Canyon, something a little bit closer. That isn't vastly different from Sacramento and Reno. And then we'll also, for safety, we'll generally give, if when in doubt, we'll give the lower altimeter, right? Because then that means you'll be a little bit higher. So that's the way, as a trainer, I would teach it to controllers, and how I think most of us would do it is, if I'm using one altimeter for separation, it's going to be the altimeter that ensures you're going to be higher than lower. So.
Let's see. Oh, we also have ground speed on there. It's hard to see, but in the one in the upper right, you see those green lines heading all towards the airport. Those are the final approach courses for the 3 instrument RNAV approaches we have into Truckee. The RNAV Alpha coming in over Donner Summit, the RNAV 11, the RNAV 20, and then there's another one that comes over from the middle of Lake Tahoe. That's another airport initiative. That's the charter visual arrival to runway 29. It's on their websites. All the fixes or names. It's all in your databases, so you should be able to pick those up. And if you wanted to fly that, all of us are familiar with the fixes. So if you're going to tell us, hey, I'm inbound to Kenneth for the charter visual arrival to 29, I'm not going to tell you to make a straight in to 29 or a left base to 29. I'm probably the only one up in the tower that doesn't say make a modified straight in. When I learned how to fly, there wasn't a modified straight in, but it all makes sense to the pilots because we issue it up here quite a bit. So if I say left base or straight in, that's mine. I give you the option to do that left base or straight in. If you're going to do something funky and go around up towards the, Bean Palisades and cut across over the Sawtooth Ridge area, let me know, because that's not exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking you were going to come in over Brockway more so. We have range rings. 5-mile range rings. We also have the landmarks on there. So that's how I can tell you to go to a geographic point and sequence you into our pattern. Recently, so thanks to Kay and Mike and the IT department here at the airport, they provided us with another display. We changed vehicles. Every vehicle has a transponder that is an airport vehicle. And we changed the display from green to yellow. And so in this picture down here on the bottom, that's a winter day snow removal with a bunch of plows out there. It's hard to see, my apologies. But that's the situational awareness we're provided. Even though the runways are closed, we're seeing those vehicles and now they're in yellow. So that increases the safety even more. And that's because of the investment made to get these transponders put into all the vehicles. You can also see them. My understanding is the pilots can see them through the ADSB as well. So if the tower's not open and there's a guy doing a runway check, an O&M guy doing operations maintenance guy doing a runway check, you're going to be able to see him on that display as well. So we have a third display that is specific to ground control. So when ground control is working, it's zoomed in just on the airport. So they can see you when you start up your airplane and your transponder comes on. We can watch your taxi route. At the FAA facilities, it's called ASDX, Airport Surveillance Detection Equipment, and different generations. And the last one that I was familiar with was the X model. And the only thing we don't get is if you're going to go past the hold line. I'm sure probably everybody's seen the Midway incident where the FlexJet rolled through the intersection. They were getting audible warnings in the tower. We don't get that audible warning if the pilot does not do what ATC told them to do, and it's told short of a runway. We won't see that on our displays, but we can see it. It helps us too on foggy days, seeing where you're at when you're taxiing. The one on the left is what is another backup system that we use. It's called Vector, and I believe the airport still uses that or a portion of it for noise abatement tracking as well as other functions. So we have the 2 displays. This is the same runway separation stuff. Here's how we sequence to get this requirement, this minimum. So here, there's 3 different categories. The FAA for what they call same runway separation. Category 1, 12,005 or less. 2, 12,005 or less, but the twin engine. Sorry, Pilatus, I think you fall into the category 1. So you only get 3,000 feet separation. I'll get to it. And then the jets, a lot of phenoms, some PC-24s up here at the airport. They're based here. 6,000 feet are clear of runway. Even the OV-10 falls into the category 3. So if we send you around because your wife's on the runway, it's anyway. Here's what we use. 3,000 feet. This is for departure to departure. We look at the different category. If the first one's a category 1, and the second one is a category 1, we can go 3,000 feet, 4,500, or 6,000 feet based on the categories that we just talked about. So category 1 behind category 1, or a 2, 3,000 feet. If the twin is behind a single, we go to 4,500 feet. Left out, the first one has to be airborne. And if it's category 3, we can go 6,000 feet. With wake turbulence reclass that the FAA did a couple years ago, we have very few aircraft that fall into that wake turbulence reclass to where the times and the different minutes between departures, we don't really have a lot of wake turbulence issues up here. The biggest one we do have is if that jet is departing runway 29 and you're in the pattern for 29. We need to make sure you see that departure, because now you are considered an arrival and then a departure. As soon as you cross that threshold, now we have a different set of standards. So we're going to ask you, do you see the Gulfstream? Affirmative. Roger. Maintain visual separation. That traffic caution, wake turbulence, base turn your discretion, runway 29, clear for the option. So you might see that. Arrival to arrival, same thing. It's the same numbers depending on the category. 3,000 feet, 4,500 feet, or clear of the runway. If a jet is involved, that jet landed, the jet has to be off the runway. I don't care if they're almost to the very end. I'm not going to point, but we got a couple. We got no, I get it. No, and it's your airplane, and I've always said you operate your aircraft safely. We have a few Vision jets up here. Even the Cirruses don't have, my understanding is they don't have the best brakes, or you don't want to use the brakes. Either one, I don't care. You operate your airplane safely. You were on the runway. The guy behind you went around. You apologize. Thank you. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. That guy was also pretty scary. I almost called you to go talk to a Canadian bear. That's what I heard the other day. He overshot final about, got all the way over to the frog pond. If you're a glider pilot, you know that's pretty far off the extended center line. Yeah, he was scary, but he went over it. I got more stories. Arrival and departure, it's the same thing. We kind of already talked about it. 3,000, 4,500, or 6,000 feet. Intersecting runway operations. We're getting into the summertime. We're getting into the glider season. We're going to be doing more 2920 configurations, 1120 configurations, depending. And occasionally the gliders, Preston can tell you, occasionally we'll go to runway 2 with the gliders. It's a long tow, but if the winds are out of the north and they're flying, we're going to be in getting more of this. The biggest thing is here, we do not do land and hold short. We don't have the requirements, the runway requirements to do that. So what we need is for the arrival to be through the intersection before you depart. So if you're landing 20, guys rolling out on 20, we're going to expedite you across the runway or tell you to turn before the intersecting runway at taxiway Papa. And then that runway then is considered clear, and we'll launch that departure off 29, or that arrival can be sequenced in to cross the threshold after you go through that intersection. We can use anticipated separation. We do this quite a bit for runway 2, to where you're rolling out through the intersection and Sloan's not here again. Kevin's not here. He'll slow down pretty much before the intersection and then just keep rolling real slow across the intersection. I know what he's going to do. We all do. And he's going to turn on golf, and I'll give that takeoff clearance off runway 2 is that airplane. You're going to be sitting on the runway, and I'm going to say runway 2 clear for takeoff. And that yellow flow plan is going to be going through the intersection. I'm anticipating before you start your takeoff roll that it'll be through that intersection. So that's what anticipated separation is. Like I said, we don't do land and hold short. Is anybody from the FAA here? Not on Zoom, no. So we have a letter of agreement. Letter of agreements are a document that is signed by 2 different parties or 3 different parties or more that outlines how we operate on the airport. We have a letter of agreement with the Truckee Tahoe Soaring Association that all glider pilots and tow pilots are expected to hold short of runway 1129 unless they tell us. So what we will do up in the tower is, if you're Vision Jet 556 Charlie Bravo traffic landing runway 20 is a glider, they're going to hold short of your runway 29 clear for takeoff. We're basing that on this letter of agreement, a legal document that says the glider pilot or the tow pilot will do that. We've been doing that since we started here. We put it into the letter of agreement a few years back. It's reviewed by the safety department as well as the Jeff, the director of aviation. We do that once a year. We meet with the glider folks. We're going to meet with them right before they start their season to just talk about the importance of open and effective communication. But if you're uncomfortable with that glider landing 20, even though he's expected to hold short of the runway, if you're uncomfortable, say something sooner than later, because if you're sitting on the runway and we clear you for takeoff, there's a good chance there's somebody behind you on final that needs that runway cleared. So if you're uncomfortable with that, let us know. We'll have you exit the runway. So I kind of talked about this. We send you to geographical points to get that runway separation, that 3,000, 4,500 or 6,000 feet. We manipulate the pattern where we might have you do a left base. We might have you go direct to midfield. We might put you over downtown. We might make you go from gateway straight to midfield. It just depends on how you're fitting into that sequence. It's just big a time, speed, and distance problem for us. I worked in an approach control for quite a few, well, my entire career, and that's all it was we take and pick a common point. If the common point is the intersecting runways, then we work backwards from there. Take a look at the distance, take a look at the ground speeds and aircraft performance. Up here, you very rarely will be assigned a speed reduction. Occasionally I'll do it because I'm running out of options. I might have you do a double wide downwind, especially to runway 20, one inside of the interstate, one over the interstate. And then I'll slow maybe one of you down or keep one of you fast just to make sure that I have that 3,000, 4,500 or 6,000 feet. So that's how we manipulate the pattern a little bit, all the while, like I said, using aircraft performance, sending you geographic points, enable the vector, pattern entry, noise abatement. All the while, again, that is on the tower wall, and we see it every day when we go in. We know that's what we're going to do, unless safety's the priority, and then we're going to go with safety over noise abatement. I think we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but from the tower perspective for flight following, we have severe equipment limitations up in the tower, not having that FDIO, not having a STARS platform, an automation platform to transfer the identification, these data blocks that Justin talked about. We don't have that. The FIDO, that's the FIDO. This is what a flight progress printout looks like, at least in the terminal world. It doesn't look like that in Justin's world. I don't think it's similar. But if we had this FIDO and you filed an IFR flight plan, Pilatus 883 Alpha Alpha, let's just pick on him. We would get that with all your information on there, and we would not have to call Justin and the controller 44 and ask for a clearance, because then what we have to do, well, I'll get to that. IFR and VFR, the automated handoffs. We don't have the STARS platform on our side, standard terminal replacement system or something like that. But it's basically the automation, the computer that provides that information. So if you depart San Carlos, you're probably on a squawk VFR. They're going to hand you off to NorCal. NorCal is going to work you through their airspace, multiple frequencies across the valley. They're going to hand you off to Justin. Never once talking to another controller, because it's all done via automation. And like I said, we don't have that automation here. Just a picture of a terminal environment and maybe what a center looks like. I don't know.
Both. So on the left is STARS. On the right is actually Potomac Tracon, where I used to work, and that's the old ARCS 3 system, which is very similar to STARS. Potomac has STARS now, but yeah, they're both Tracon.
They're both Tracon? Yeah. Sorry, I thought I picked the center one. Pretty good. For us in Truckee, how do we transfer arrival and departure information for an instrument aircraft? All done via a shower. When we first opened up, We didn't have that. We had to dial a 16-digit number or whatever to get into the Oakland center controller. We then progressed to a cell phone. We had a cell phone hooked up in the tower cab that was direct to a line next to their controllers. That went away because of some distraction and safety concerns, is my understanding.
It was a phone that was, just imagine an office phone. All of our equipment in the center is all through our headset, right? Imagine it's an office phone that literally an office phone that we just put on hold and mute. So when they would call, we would just pick up the phone, put it back on hold and hang up. So it became, they did some wiring to make it work. But it was a temporary solution to what now is our landline, where we can hear them right through in our headsets.
So we have a shout line. So I mentioned it before, if you guys are calling us and we're not responding to you, it's not because we're watching something on Netflix or the Warriors game. Mike had to leave. These Warriors are on. I can't believe it. But we have a shout line, a direct line to the sector controller. So we can talk to them almost immediately. They can talk to us immediately. And so if we're up here, we handwrite everything. So that top strip, this is November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is citation 25 Alpha. He's going to be on a visual approach. Justin's our center controllers called us up and said he was going to be here at 0022. So we then take that strip and we put it in front of the tower controller, what we call local control. And that is our transfer of information from the center to us. That's how we do it. The bottom strip is that same citation is going to go to Scottsdale. And this is an old strip because it's the truck 4 departure. We're on the truck 5 right now. So I have to call down, take time away from him and his other duties to get a clearance. They're going to spout off the clearance. And if I don't know how to spell a fix that's in your flight plan, they're going to have to spell it for me. So IFR clearance is when you call and request your clearance, we always say clearance on request because we probably don't have it. If we see you show up in FlightAware, we track everybody. That's how we kind of track how busy we're going to be is FlightAware. A lot of the planes are blocked up here. You guys, as owners of the airplanes that blocked your call signs, that's fine. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't show up there. So I might ask you for your destination because when we call the center, I'm going to say request clearance Pilatus 883 Alpha San Carlos because you told me you're going to San Carlos. They will then spit out everything. Depending on the departure procedure, the Mogul 2 has become the primary departure procedure from the center controllers. It's all RNAV based. It's procedurally separated from the South Lake Tahoe departures. There's no turn in lieu of holding, which I think you guys were talking about before the meeting. On the truck 5, if you don't cross truck at or above, you got to go into holding. High density altitudes are coming up. There's going to be some issues with that. So any follow-up on departure procedures?
No, the only thing to add, Larry mentioned, but when you do call for a clearance, it's not like Larry just has that there, right? He has to call, and it's a voice clearance, and the controller could be busy, could be working 3 different sectors in one, combined in one position, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So, because I have to sit there, I have to read the clearance. As Larry mentioned, the destination, a lot of the Part 135 jets that have like exec jets, a good example, net jets, where they'll file 3 or 4 flight plans to 3 or 4 different destinations. And so if Larry's like request, clearance for exec jet 245, I need to know which clearance, right? And that's a pretty common thing too. So, and then we're having to verbally give that clearance to the tower. They read it back to us and then they issue it. So it's a convoluted process compared to what happens at, most towers that you're probably flying to, where it's like Larry mentioned, they get a strip that auto prints and they can read it right from that strip. Because at the center, I can amend that strip. I have the ability to do that for Reno. I can amend a flight plan going to Reno, and then they have to read what I amend, but I don't have that ability here, unfortunately.
So this piece of equipment, Fido, was the second thing I asked for to make the tower safer, and it was right after the Challenger accident. It didn't play a role in the accident itself, but prior to the Challenger getting on our frequency, our controller had a request from a pilot on the ground for a clearance, an IFR clearance. You guys all remember Rhonda, the Southern lady? Rhonda was working the tower position that day, and she called down to Oakland Center about the same time that Challenger was trying to start that approach. And Justin can tell you, it didn't have an impact on it, but there were some things that controller at Oakland Center missed. Didn't ensure that they had at the time it was the 1 minute weather. Didn't ensure they had the 1 minute weather. Did it play into the accident? Maybe, maybe not, because the AWAS that we had is very bad on smoke. That's why the airport after the accident put on a remark on the AWAS broadcast. Smoke in the area visibility might not be representative of what's actually happening. However, it was worded. Once we got the ATIS and we became certified tower weather observers, that visibility you see is from a certified tower radar observer. It's not from the AWAS visibility sensors. So just know that. So the 1 minute weather was missing, and then an altimeter wasn't issued to the Challenger descending out of flight level 180. If you operate above flight level 180, everybody knows you're on 2992. When you go below it, you get that Truckee altimeter from the center controller. Both those things were missed by the center controller. Was that because we called up and got a clearance and distracted the controllers? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I asked for the piece of equipment. We still. It's a
Just
long,
two
long
comments.
drawn out process.
It's not KTRK, it's not the airport, but we've asked, because we're not federal contract tower, VFR tower, visual separation is the long lane, same with star scope. We've asked, it's not within our span of control, non-federal contract towers just don't get that type of equipment. And then just the last piece, we only have about 4 minutes left, so I know there are gonna be a lot of questions.
Okay. So this is one of the things that I chatted with Jeff about, also about things that we're seeing up in the tower that I wanted to bring up tonight. And it's probably the same thing in the center environment. If you're unable to comply with an ATC clearance, let us know. I've had 2 in the last 2 weeks. One of them, pilot was assigned the noise abatement departure procedure, departing runway 20, the left 270 to pick up the bypass departure. Cleared him for takeoff, made the left turn. I saw him over the runway heading out to the bypass, called to get a clearance from the center. I looked back up and he was in the turn already out on the down. And I said, it was a series. But I was like, yeah, you were assigned the bypass, the 270 to pick up the bypass. And he goes, oh, I misunderstood you. I just thought I'd do the 540. And I was like, well, I had no traffic, so it's not a problem. No traffic inbound, frequency change approved. So if you just don't do something, because we're issuing control instructions to separate you from other aircraft, inbound, outbound. So just don't do it. I did this one when I was a student pilot down learning how to fly in Santa Rosa. But this one happened just the other day. I issued runway 29 clear to land, and I also hear it rolling down the runway. I was getting ready to key up, turn left at Delta, remain this frequency taxi to parking because I was combined, and I heard the power come up and they departed. And I was like, you were cleared to land. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, I just thought I could do a touch and go. That's the same thing I told the tower controller in Santa Rosa, and they had a Brasilia. This was that long ago, a twin engine turboprop inbound opposite direction. And I did a touch and go because I looked at my watch and I had like 10 minutes left on the rental, and I wanted to do a touch and go. So it could happen. But tell us if you can't do something. Always read back the assigned runways, any hold short instructions. It's required by all FAA tower controllers. This is another big one. I know we've had the ATIS for a couple of years. Please give us the ATIS code. It is a requirement to have that information. If something were to happen similar to the Challenger accident and the ATIS code wasn't told to us and we didn't make sure you had the current weather in your crash, there's a good possibility the FAA through Midwest ATC is going to say, your controller didn't do their job. Let's drug test it. We get random drug tests up here, just like anybody in the transportation business. So we're all going to pass, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things where it seems really small, but at the end of the day, it's pretty big. So ATIS, if we give you an instruction again, don't guess, ask us. And Justin's probably seen stuff that's happened up there. Jeff, I'm going to go long. Sorry. Summertime operations. I'm gonna go fast. Density altitude. Everybody's familiar with density altitude. The airport puts the signs up, or at least they have. I don't know if this year we're going to put them up. They'll be up. The ATIS will have a density altitude on there. If you want it, we have on that AWAS display, we have a I think it's the only one not near pavement, so the pavement doesn't impact the reading on the density altitude. So if you ask us, let us know. DVQ talked about the construction project. It's going to have minimal impact. It's supposed to have minimal impact to air traffic control. It's all on the non-movement area, which is the ramp. Taxiway Quebec is going to be closed, so we're going to have to move everything to Alpha. Alpha could be more congested. Transient parking in the ingress and egress out of transient parking is going to be quite different because taxiway Delta is going to be closed. One side of the fuel island is going to be closed. So just pay attention. Come to the meeting next week if you have any concerns or questions. I'll be there at that meeting as well. We talked about intersecting runway operations and the challenges we have here at the airport. There's the airport layout. Thunderstorms. We're coming into that season. If you see something, we get pilot reports of lightning all the time. We appreciate that because that gets us looking out the windows more. Everything we do for weather observations is either within 5 miles, 10 miles, or what they consider distant. So we like those reports so we can put it on the ATIS and code it correctly. So a pilot flight planning out of San Carlos, out of Palo Alto might be able to see that information. So high reps, pass those along. We're going to be using runway 20 more. I'm kind of picked this up from the Cirrus flight training you guys did last summer. Everything off the end of runway 20 seems like a complete, I don't want to say shit show, but it's tough. It's a tough approach. We see people all the time ballooning and low-level wind shear gliders. Preston's been out there many years flying out of there. It's a tough approach. It really is. And so any information you can give us, low-level wind shear, downdrafts, updrafts, we give that to the center. The center then can give it to you. Turbulence reports over the Sierras in the summertime with the convective activity. That information makes it to the center controllers as well. He already told you he puts it in a system and it broadcasts completely out into the national airspace system. Glider operations. Northeast quadrant's pretty much going to be shut down. When we get a glider to depart, whether it's 1 or 20, we're going to call Oakland Center and say gliders are airborne. They then are going to start looking for the transponder code for the gliders, and they're going to try to keep most of that traffic away from that northeast quadrant. That's going to impact how we operate also as a control tower. So just be conscientious about what we're assigning you. If you have any questions, let us know how to effectively get out of the airspace without tangling up in that northeast quadrant. They are going to have one glider competition. Have you been over? Yeah, it's unfortunately it's July 5th through the 11th, which I think is a terrible time. Birch is not here, and neither's Ron. I think it's a bad time, but hey, it's a challenge for us up in the tower. And without skydiving, makes it a little bit easier. So there's the gliders. It's going to be green toe again, right? Green toe's coming up the pickle.
Sure.
Don't know. Drones. Drone zone, not Lance. If you're a drone operator, you know what this means. If you're not, don't worry about it. Drone zone is what this airport utilizes in conjunction with you put the application in to fly your drone in the Class Delta airspace at Truckee. If it's below, again, it's hard to see that area down below is grid altitude, 0 to 400 feet. If it's in a grid altitude of 0 and you want to fly, you better be a Part 107 commercial operator. If you're a recreational flyer and you're just going to fly your drone around, take pictures of your backyard or something like that, you can't do it legally. But if you're going to want to go above those altitudes, the request then comes to me and I evaluate the request and I'll put any kind of restrictions on you, the operator. We have a ton of drone operations in this area, from the Tiker plant off the end of runway 20 to Marta's camp to up at highway 89 north and Alder Creek. There's a bunch of drone operations up there looking at some of the property, the construction that's happening up in that area. All the law enforcement firefighters, they've got blanket operations to fly up here. They're supposed to notify us, but they don't have to. When we close, it reverts to Class Echo airspace. Yeah, Echo. And then Oakland Center is responsible for any drone operations. Like I said earlier, that's the FAA grid altitudes, the approval above, unauthorized drone activity. If we get a report, we had one. The airport had one after the tower closed. O&M guy doing a maintenance check. He was out at the approach end of runway 20, looked up, and there was a couple green lights and a flashing bunch of propellers in a drone. And he was like right over the runway. And spun around, looked down at the O&M technician out there doing a runway check and went, and he dove down behind the trees by the sewer treatment plant and disappeared. That kind of information, if we were open, we would notify Washington DC, what's called the Domestic Events Network. If it's closed, chances are it's going to go to local law enforcement, and we're trying to work out some protocols with the local law enforcement on how they're going to respond. Tower tours, again, my business card's in the back. The survey, we love the tours. Everybody does. You don't have to bring cookies, but yeah, hey. My email's back there, my cell number's on there. I don't care how you get a hold of me, but if you want a tour, please reach out. So we don't have a whole bunch of people up in the tower cab. If you've never been up in the tower, it's a pretty small tower. So, Justin, any real quick follow on before we go to questions?
Nope.
Any questions? Oh, go to the back.
For Justin, you mentioned manager there and a lot of questions about. Do you want us to be like following in the way? Is there anything else that we can do?
Flight following is great, right? You will find with that, you'll generally get terminated a lot earlier than a lot of places. And that's just because of radio limitations, as well as there's some ADSB dead zones out up north of Reno. But we like it, especially if you're coming from Sacramento area or from Truckee, any Reno area where there's quite a few operations, and then we'll terminate, your service once you get a little bit closer. But yeah, we do like talking to you. And so generally speaking, 10 to 11,000 is pretty good. The further north you get, the worse it gets. Our transmitters in that sector are at Reno and Fallon. So that's where where all that communication. Over here at this sector over Truckee, it's actually at Palisades, right, or Squaw Peak. So it's really at really good location, 127.95. So we can hear and communicate pretty well. But for the Reno area, the further away you get from Reno and Fallon, going to 88 November Victor, kind of the worse the radios get. Yeah, like I'd say Pyramid Lake's good. Anything north of that just depends on the altitude. Anything as you start ascending below 10 will probably start to terminate you. Yeah. What, 88 November Victor or the yes.
Thanks for the presentation. You guys did a good job. My question is, you provide a similar presentation to the global flights experience. Because the reason why I asked this question is ATC seems to have a great handle on what pilots do, how they do it, what kind of place they need for safe operation. But as a pilot, not knowing ATC's services that they can provide or how they operate, it seems like there's a big disconnect. I wish I could explore more how you can help me to be a safe pilot by me as a help. Does that make any sense?
Sure. Yeah, and so the question for Zoom, the question was whether or not we could provide these briefings to local flight schools, I believe. From this presentation specifically is designed for the Truckee Airport, but it carries over to any airport that is similar to Truckee, a Class Delta airport. Runway separation, if we get into the federal contract towers that might have certified tower radar displays, they might have a letter of agreement with the overlying approach control or center sectors that allows them to do certain things that we can't do here at Truckee. Equipment limitations and the type of tower, like Jeff mentioned, being a VFR tower, there's certain things we can and can't do. So it depends on where that flight school is, but I would be more than willing for Truckee to reach out to any of the CFIs.
Specifically, you guys here in Truckee, but a system. I'm not that familiar with what is trained in the flight schools these days, but there seems like there's a big disconnect between what do pilots know enough about ATC's job to know what to expect. We're down to talk on the radios. Half the battle is knowing what to expect and not knowing all of the choices of what I could expect or ask for. Seems like there's a disconnect.
You say between students, pilots, is that what you do?
So the company I work for, they do more informal type presentations where they call it coffee with a controller. That it's one thing that it just came up and I was made aware of. The company supports that. So it's something that I might chat with Jeff about and possibly just, and not me, not just me, but the tower team, anybody that wants to come up here to the red truck, sit by the fireplace or in that little area if it's available and just chat with you. You know, because some of these questions you have, they might, the next time we do this, it's probably going to be next year. And you might not get that question answered. So we might look for that possibly. I need to chat with Jeff a little bit more about copy of control. I'm 100% on board with that. All the controllers up here, we walk around the airport quite a bit. So if you see anybody, Todd, I love Todd, but I'll tell you, he's our homeless guy. So if you see a guy with a big bushy beard, that's Todd. He's a controller. He loves to talk. If he has a shit. It's once a quarter he should. But if you see Steve, turn around and go the other way, because if you're on a time schedule, you're gonna not have it, Steve just no. We all love to do that. We all love tower. We love having you guys come up and just talk. Right, Don? Wake up.
And for FAA facilities, it's the same. You know, they're, you know, depending on what's going on at any given time, they may or may not be doing tours at a specific facility. But I would encourage any student pilot to reach out to their local facility. Anyone that wants to see Oakland Center, my email should be up there in that presentation. But we, you know, we're happy to bring local pilots around and let them see what we do, and highly encourage that.
You've been hearing a lot today about your ATC problems. How's Oakland Center as far as their reliability of the equipment?
So I will say that, you know, every facility in the country faces similar issues with staffing and you know, just the nature of our ATC system equipment wise is antiquated, right? You know, still using radar, and the FAA is making moves to rectify that, you know, moving a lot of the copper wiring to fiber optic. There's a lot of different moves that are happening. We'll see how all that pans out over the next few years. As far as Oakland Center is concerned, safety and reliability is always there, right? When we have issues, we identify them. It's a big part of what the union does. You know, we have various safety reporting systems similar to the way pilots have the NASA report. We have something called ATSAP. So when we see that there's either equipment or circumstances that are unsafe, we have the ability to anonymously report those, and they're very seriously taken. They leave the building and they're addressed. So that's not an Oakland Center specific thing. That's, you know, a nationwide thing. But as far as overall, you know, Oakland Center has dealt with its issues with staffing for years. Again, we're always in a move, you know, in tandem with the agency to work to rectify that. But as far as equipment goes, you know, we're in a pretty good spot, and hopefully things continue to improve. The Newark situation is very specific to some changes that happened over there that I can't really speak to, obviously, because, you know, it's not my expertise, but we don't really have, you know, that type of issue where we've never really experienced at Oakland.
Let's see one more question, and I'm sure Justin and Larry will stay to answer all the questions you may have. So,
Any other questions?
So I heard at one time we were trying to put a repeater in for one way, consider so we could get something to the east. Is that ever happening in the airport's perspective?
So here, I'll do this correctly this time. The question was, if we're gonna put a repeater on to get the ATIS frequency to be able to get better coverage out over Lake Tahoe, and I've also had concerns west of the Sierras. Jeff will answer that.
We installed a new radio. We did a bunch of testing over the past 6 months. The feedback we've had, it has improved, but we know we're not going to put in a repeater. Putting in a repeater is really long and complicated, as opposed to just putting something here. But if we add something somewhere else, it gets pretty complex. So,
and I've heard there's an issue on the other side. There might be a 118.0 on the other side of the Sierras.
I fly up Southern Nevada all the time, and I get over speed or something before I ever pick it up. You know, I talk to you guys, you know, I'm spoken to dial in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, give us a call and just check and say, I'm not able to pick up the ATIS, and we'll give you the weather.
Yeah. And Oakland Center also gets the report in our system. So if you ever, hey, I'm not picking up the ATIS yet, we can read you the METAR, and yeah.
So
One last question.
one last question.
On the alternative setting coming here, because I'm coming on for give me a sign. And I'm coming in now, I've got a Delta coming into here, do you still administrate this in the SAC? Another setting, or do I, as soon as I tell you I've got help, I go to.
I would say most of the time until you get switched, we would expect you to stay on that altimeter. That being said, there's a good chance once you say you have Delta, we're not going to give you the Truckee altimeter. So I would say if there is a reason for me to keep you on the Sacramento altimeter, will probably reiterate, Roger, Sacramento altimeter 2980. But yeah, at some point, I think probably, yeah, you'll switch on your own.
So Larry and Jess, they're gonna stick around a little while longer. We'll let you all get into here. But first, Larry's already got on it, but Justin, wanted to say thanks for coming up. Round of applause, everybody. Hope you all join us again next month. Good night. 18th.
Yeah,